There is a force operating inside you right now that most people never identify. It does not announce itself. It does not arrive with a label. It works quietly, beneath the surface of your conscious awareness, and its job, as far as your subconscious is concerned, is to make sure you never get too far ahead of where you believe you deserve to be. That force is guilt, not the occasional guilt you feel after a specific mistake, not the guilt that pauses after an apology and a correction. I am talking about chronic, subconscious guilt, the deep, formless sense that you have done something wrong, that you are fundamentally flawed, that you do not deserve the success you are building. And here is what neuroscience has proven about this kind of guilt. It is not just an emotion. It is a subconscious program, a self-destruct mechanism installed in your mind, often before you were old enough to understand what was happening. And it is running right now, in the background, quietly sabotaging everything you are trying to build. You have probably experienced this, even if you have never had a name for it. You work hard for months. You build something real, a relationship, a business, a new version of yourself. And then, just as things start to go well, just as the results begin to materialize, something happens. You make a decision that undoes it. You create a conflict that did not need to happen. You stop showing up with the same energy. You find yourself doing something, almost inexplicably, that pulls you back to where you started. And you look at the wreckage and think, why do I keep doing this? What is wrong with me? Here is the answer your subconscious has been keeping from you. Nothing is wrong with you, but something is running inside you. A program that says you do not deserve to keep what you build. And until that program is identified and dissolved, it will keep doing its job with extraordinary efficiency. Because the subconscious is not cruel, it is consistent. And if it has been programmed to believe that success, happiness, and abundance are not safe for you, it will protect you from them. Every single time. To understand how guilt programs the subconscious for self-destructs, we need to understand what guilt actually is at the neurological level. Guilt is a complex emotional state that activates multiple regions of the brain simultaneously, including the prefrontal cortex, the anterior cingulate cortex, and the limbic system. When you experience guilt, your brain releases a specific cocktail of neurochemicals, including cortisol, the primary stress hormone that creates a state of physiological discomfort, designed to motivate corrective behavior. In small, appropriate doses, guilt is healthy. It signals that your behavior has conflicted with your values, and it motivates repair. This is what psychologists call healthy guilt, and it is a normal, functional part of human moral development. But there is a second kind of guilt, what researchers call toxic guilt or chronic guilt, that operates very differently. Toxic guilt is not a response to a specific action. It is a pervasive, ongoing emotional state that does not resolve with apology or correction. It is guilt without a specific cause, a background radiation of unworthiness that saturates the subconscious and shapes everything from the inside out. Where does toxic guilt come from? In the vast majority of cases, it is installed in childhood, during the theta download window we have discussed in previous videos. When the analytical mind has not yet developed and everything enters the subconscious without filter, there are several common sources. The first is conditional love. When a child's experience of love and approval is consistently tied to their performance, behavior, or compliance, they develop a subconscious association between their natural self and inadequacy. Being too loud, too emotional, too much, or not enough, and being made to feel ashamed of those qualities installs a chronic sense of fundamental wrongness. The second source is parentification. When a child is made to feel responsible for a parent's emotional state, financial stress, or happiness, children who grow up feeling that they are the cause of their parents' pain develop a deep subconscious guilt for simply existing and taking up resources. The third source is religious or cultural shame programming, the repeated message that human nature is inherently sinful, that pleasure is suspect, that success is selfish, that wanting more is greedy. These messages, received in childhood, become subconscious programs that activate every time the adult approaches a level of success or happiness that exceeds what the program considers acceptable. Now let us talk about the specific ways that guilt destroys what you build, because this is where most people have their most painful moments of recognition. The first mechanism is what psychologists call the upper limit problem, a term coined by Gay Hendricks in his seminal work, The Big Leap. Hendricks observed that every person has an internal thermostat for how much success, love, and happiness they are allowed to experience before the subconscious kicks in and brings them back down. When you approach or exceed this internal upper limit, the subconscious, which has been programmed by guilt to believe you do not deserve this level of good, generates what Hendricks calls an upper limiting behavior. This might be a sudden illness, an inexplicable argument with a partner just when things are going beautifully, a financial decision that makes no logical sense, about a self-doubt so intense it paralyzes forward movement entirely. From the outside, these look like bad luck, or weakness, or sabotage. From the inside, they feel bewildering and shameful. But from the perspective of subconscious mechanics, they are perfectly logical. The guilt program has detected that you have exceeded your allowed level of well-being, and it has activated the correction mechanism. It is doing exactly what it was programmed to do. The second mechanism through which guilt destroys what you build is chronic self-punishment. This is the subconscious pattern of undermining your own success through behaviors that feel, on the surface, completely unrelated to guilt. Overspending money the moment it arrives, so it can never accumulate. Staying in relationships that confirm your sense of unworthiness. Procrastinating on the actions that would most directly advance your goals. Overworking to the point of exhaustion, not because the work requires it, but because rest feels undeserved. Dismissing compliments, minimizing achievements, finding fault with your own success before anyone else can. Each of these behaviors is a form of self-punishment, the subconscious enacting the sentence that the guilt program has determined you deserve. And the particularly insidious thing about chronic self-punishment is that it often masquerades as virtues: humility, hard work, modesty, responsibility. These are real virtues, but when they are driven by guilt rather than by genuine values. They are actually mechanisms of self-destruct, wearing the costume of good character. The third mechanism is what I call guilt-driven relationships. The pattern of unconsciously choosing or creating relationships that confirm and reinforce the guilt program. People carrying deep subconscious guilt are often extraordinarily giving, sometimes to the point of complete self-neglect. This is because giving feels like payment. Every act of generosity, every sacrifice, every moment of putting others first is a subconscious installment on a debt that never gets paid, because the guilt that drives it is not about any real debt. It is a program, and programs do not respond to payment. They respond to reprogramming. People driven by guilt also frequently choose partners, friendships, and professional relationships that confirm their subconscious sense of unworthiness. They are drawn to people who need them because being needed feels like justification for existing. They tolerate treatment that a person with a healthy sense of worth would never accept because some part of them believes they deserve it. And when relationships that feel genuinely loving and mutual are offered, they often find themselves unable to fully receive them because the guilt program says, "I am not worthy of this. Something must be wrong. This cannot last." Now I want to address something important before we move to the solution. There is a difference between guilt and responsibility, and it is critical that you understand this distinction, because one of the most common responses to this kind of work is a fear of losing moral accountability. Guilt, as we have been discussing it, is not the same as taking responsibility for your actions. Responsibility is conscious, specific, and forward-looking. I made a mistake. I am acknowledging it. I am making it right. I am choosing differently. That is healthy. That is integrity. Guilt, in the toxic sense, is subconscious, formless, and self-perpetuating. It is not about a specific action. It is about a fundamental sense of unworthiness that no action can resolve, because it is a program, not a moral position. Dissolving the guilt program does not make you less ethical. It makes you more capable of genuine ethical action, because your behavior will be driven by real values rather than by the need to pay a debt that was never legitimately yours to pay. The most ethical, generous, loving people I have ever encountered are not driven by guilt. They are driven by genuine care, which is a completely different emotional and neurological experience. And the path from guilt-driven giving to genuine care begins with dissolving the program. So how do you dissolve a guilt program that has been running in your subconscious for years or decades? The process has 4 stages, and it begins with something that most people find surprisingly difficult. The first stage is identification. You cannot dissolve a program you cannot see. And guilt programs are particularly difficult to identify because they are so deeply embedded that they feel like personality, like just the way I am, rather than a program I was given. Begin by asking yourself these questions honestly. Do you consistently find a way to undermine your own success just as it begins to materialize? Do you find it genuinely difficult to receive love, compliments, or good things without immediately discounting them or feeling you must earn them? Do you experience inexplicable shame, a background sense of wrongness, that has no specific cause you can identify? Do you consistently prioritize others' needs to the point of complete self-neglect and feel guilty when you do not? Do you feel more comfortable in relationships where you are needed than in relationships where you are simply loved? If you answered yes to several of these questions, a guilt program is likely running in your subconscious. The identification itself is powerful, because the moment you can see a program as a program rather than as the truth about who you are, you have created the distance necessary to begin changing it. The second stage is origin work. Once you have identified the guilt program, spend time in your journal, in meditation, or with a trusted person, tracing it back to its source. Where did this program come from? Whose voice does the guilt sound like? How old were you when this sense of fundamental unworthiness first arrived? What circumstances installed it? This is not about assigning blame. Your parents, your religion, your culture, they were all transmitting their own programs. The goal of origin work is not to find someone to be angry at. It is to recognize clearly and specifically that this program was installed by circumstances that are no longer relevant to your present life. The child who needed to feel guilty in order to navigate a particular family system. That child is gone. You are an adult with the capacity to choose your programs consciously. The guilt you are carrying was not yours to begin with. Seeing that clearly, really seeing it, is one of the most liberating experiences available to a human being. And it creates the opening through which the third stage becomes possible. The third stage is active reprogramming, using the tools we have explored throughout this series. To install a new program in place of the guilt, begin with your morning theta practice. In the window after waking, when the subconscious is most receptive, bring the guilt program into your awareness, gently, without judgment, and consciously offer it something different. I am worthy of the success I build. I am allowed to keep what I create. My well-being does not come at the expense of others. I deserve to receive love as freely as I give it. The good things in my life are not mistakes. I am safe to succeed. Speak these statements from within a genuine emotional state of self-compassion, not performance, real feeling. If the guilt arises as you say them, notice it. Breathe into it. Do not fight it. Simply observe it as a program and continue to offer the replacement. This is not instant. Guilt programs that have run for decades require consistent, patient reprogramming. But with daily practice in the theta window, with genuine emotional engagement, the new program begins to gain neural weight. And as it does, the guilt program begins to lose its grip. The upper limit expands. The self-punishment decreases. The capacity to receive increases, and you begin, for perhaps the first time, to actually keep what you build. The fourth stage is behavioral commitment, and this is where the reprogramming becomes permanent. Every time you catch the guilt program activating and choose differently, you weaken the old neural pathway and strengthen the new one. When the upper limit behavior rises, the inexplicable argument, the self-sabotaging decision, the sudden retreat from success, catch it, name it. Say to yourself, this is the guilt program. I see it. I am choosing differently. And then make the choice that the guilt program was designed to prevent. Stay in the success. Receive the compliment. Keep the money. Accept the love. Show up for the opportunity. Each of these choices, made consciously, in the face of the guilt program's resistance, is an act of profound subconscious reprogramming. You are not just changing a behavior. You are rewriting a belief about what you deserve. And over time, with enough repetitions, the new belief becomes the dominant program. The guilt recedes not because you suppressed it, but because you have given the subconscious consistent evidence of a new reality. You are someone who deserves to succeed, who is allowed to keep what they build, who receives love as naturally as they give it. And gradually, beautifully, your life begins to reflect that new truth. Let us bring this together. Guilt is not just an emotion. In its chronic, subconscious form, it is a program installed in childhood, running beneath conscious awareness, designed to prevent you from exceeding the level of success, love, and happiness that the program has determined you deserve. It destroys what you build through 3 primary mechanisms: the upper limit problem, which generates inexplicable self-sabotage every time you approach your internal success ceiling; chronic self-punishment, which undermines your success through behaviors that masquerade as virtues; and guilt-driven relationships, which confirm and reinforce your sense of unworthiness. The 4-stage protocol for dissolving the guilt program. Identification. See the program clearly as a program, not as the truth about who you are. Origin work. Trace it back to its source and recognize that it was installed by circumstances that are no longer relevant. Active reprogramming. Use the theta window, genuine emotional engagement, and consistent daily practice to install a new belief about what you deserve. And behavioral commitment. Catch the upper limit behavior, name it, and choose differently. Every choice to keep what you build is an act of subconscious reprogramming. Every moment of receiving love without immediately deflecting, it is a new neural pathway forming. Every decision to stay in your success, rather than retreat from it, is evidence to your subconscious that a new program is now in charge. You are not your guilt. You never were. You are someone who deserves to build something extraordinary and to keep it. Subscribe to Awake. Mind for more. I will see you in the next one.